terms of the places that we visit, it's a privilege and an honor to have this role and this job, because there's the travel aspect, which most people will be very happy to do, to see all these places around the world. But whenever we're in town, I get to look after lots of local volunteers who have given their time up to be a part of the race. You get to know local people. There will be some people that will travel with my company who will only see the same faces in each stopover, whereas I get to see lots of new ones. There's a lot of firm friendships that are made during the volunteer program. I'm very happy to be a part of that. The Volvo Ocean Race brings a lot of jobs to the local communities that it visits and the local cities. And there is a lot of interest, as most of our things here, in fact all of these things are for free. So of course there'll be food courts and things like that which we have no control over, but all of the elements that we bring are for free. And it's a great environment for a family, for people to come around and learn more about what is probably the biggest endurance race in the world. Certainly the biggest on the ocean, but I think in the world as well. I came about it by chance, really, having spoken to Bruno. The sustainability area is behind one of our experience elements, and once I learned what was going on there and what was being taught, I straight away wanted to be a part of it, because I think in each of the places we visit, there's more interaction we could have with local young adults and local children, in terms of, yes, we teach everyone about the race here, but also about the impact of large-scale events and the impact that we've all had collectively, because it's the younger generation that are left with the problems made by the previous ones. And I think it's very important at this time, in fact there's nothing more important than to be inspiring young minds of today about the task that will await them in the future. Within their lifetimes, all the main fossil fuels will have run out. We seem to be locked into this spiral without any seeming escape, due to the fact that I think it's quite obvious that throughout the world's history, there's been a very small group of people that have controlled a lot of major decisions. And I think it's time for us to wake up and to realize that it's no good waiting around for a centralized government to solve our problems. We need to come together and help solve these ourselves. And one of those ways it's done, I think, is by small communities. Through small communities building and growing together, realizing that there are no such differences in terms of color, in terms of religion, in terms of football team. We're all human beings on this one planet. There's been a lot of mistakes made in the past, but it's up to us to come together and to solve those problems now, because nothing could be more important. I honestly believe that. So if there's any sort of help, advice or anything like that that I could bring, having had a lot of experience looking into many different things, because it is ultimately my main belief that through organized education, it's a wonderful thing, but it lacks a lot of important issues, and a lot of important things are not taught through that. And one of those is that we are all capable of so much more than we've been led to believe. Every single person. And I think that's where a lot of that change begins. Nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something. I mean, there's a couple of ways of looking at it. What I love about this race village is that we have a food court here and a food court over the back. There's live music on all the time. And that brings people together on a small level. They're not perhaps learning anything there, but they are coming together for a short period of time that we're here. And to be a part of that is first and foremost a wonderful thing. The legacy left is mostly with kids. That's why I enjoy teaching kids and being in their company. The same with young adults as well, is that they still believe in magic. When we get older, we get a bit more cynical. We've got so many more other responsibilities to be looking after. And when you can bring together young adults and children into a safe environment, and you can give them the tools necessary to teach themselves, that's one of the things I think that's very important, is that rather somebody sat in front telling them exactly what to do and what to think and memorize all of this stuff and give it back to me in an exam and somehow you'll be a success, is to give them the tools to find out these things for themselves. I think that's a very powerful way of learning. So the project we have here is certainly something I'd like to get more involved with, because you're leaving an impact on local kids here, and I talked about the community aspect of it earlier, who have suddenly thought to themselves, oh, hang on a minute, it really is up to us. And not in a daunting way, not in a way that where you think, oh my God, this is too much. There's no fresh water. We're running out of ideas. We're running out of fossil fuels. We're running out of this, running out of that. It becomes too much sometimes, and that's a real negative. But to give them the tools through teaching, through lessons, through hands-on, create your own project. Don't just listen to my ideas. Create your own. I think that's a really impressive way of leaving an impact and inspiring more than anything else. And then at the end, when they've come up with a successful project, they suddenly think to themselves, well, this is incredible. I've done this, not somebody else, I've done this. And now, of course, we have social media, which is forcing a lot of change amongst the people of the world. We're instantly in touch with everything. If in the past, if you wanted to be a successful musician, you'd have to go through certain stages. Now you can post your videos onto YouTube. People will come and go, maybe they like that, maybe they don't, but that's the power that social media gives us. It connects all of us, and I think that's also a very useful force of change. Absolutely, absolutely. In the future edition, I can see a race where we have the race and the race village. That's very important. But also we have these projects going on in each of the different ports, and those ports communicating with each other on those projects. We have Skype calls. We have all of this fantastic technology at our fingertips that we use on the boats as well. So there's so many ways of tying in. 70% of the Earth is made up of the oceans. These guys and girls are sailing on the oceans. So that's a very nice way of tying all of this stuff in. And with the use of technology and how small the world has got in that respect, you can have one of these in each of the ports, those communicating with each other, and then they have the tools then to keep going there. So by the time the next edition comes around, those little projects are even bigger. And that would be a true lasting legacy. If when you came back on each race, that project had grown. We're gone for 3 years, when we come back, it's 3 times as big. And I think that would be incredible, and I think everybody, including of course the important sponsors, would want to be a part of that. Because why would you not be? To inspire and to teach young kids about things that are so important at this present time. Who wouldn't want to be a part of that? And we have a lot of power here within this race. We have a lot of people that come here that perhaps they go to work, they go home, they make some dinner, watch some TV, they go to work, they come home, they make some dinner, they watch some TV. That are on this constant repetitive cycle. They never come out and think, whoa, hang on a minute, you know? And that's another thing as well. If people can come in and they can see this, we don't have to go to these mainstream massive supermarkets to buy new furniture. We can make it. And that's one of the great things about the sustainable thing. When you go there, there's handmade, useful items that have been rescued from places. Because unfortunately we live in a time where people get something and then throw it away, and without thinking about the impact of it. So that again, it's just important to get people thinking about different things, thinking outside of the box that has been created for us, because it doesn't suit certain people for us to be coming together on a community level and solving these problems.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I love your answer, actually. I hope it becomes true, actually.
Well, I do. I have a lot of hope for humanity because we're only using 10% of our brains. There's another 90% to be illuminated. By believing in ourselves and by, I think that's the key thing, by understanding that there's so much more going on than we've been led to believe. You know, there's a very limited 5 senses that interpret this reality. And beyond that, there's a whole other world. And so we just need to get out of that. We're almost childlike in that respect. We're always waiting around for somebody else to solve our problems. By sorting out those problems ourselves together at a small community grassroots level, all of a sudden this big centralization of power is redundant because, you know, those problems that we have, we've sorted out ourselves. There's abundance everywhere. There's enough food to feed everybody. There's enough houses for us all to live in. Why do people go hungry? Why do people homeless? Those are the questions. We need to keep asking that. Everything we've ever been told in terms of hierarchy and structure and centralization of power, ask ourselves why. Why is that important? And I think that that abundance that nature provides, and we do as well, you've only got to look online and see new free technologies, 3D printing, there's all of these fascinating, amazing things happening at this time, but we don't read about it in the mainstream newspaper. We don't read about the projects to save water, fresh water, from the air that are being done in Africa, because they threaten certain institutions, powerful institutions, don't get me wrong, but there's 7 billion of us. 7 billion of us here on this planet that are under the rules of a tiny percentage of that. And by coming together, we transform the consciousness of this planet. And that's what we're in the midst of doing. There's never been a more interesting time to be alive, that's for sure. And we all have that power, and mostly we all have that responsibility. Waiting around on our knees for somebody else to come and do it for us will keep us going on this road that we're on at the moment, and that's not going to be a very pleasant one for the children and the children of tomorrow. So we all must be responsible for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really glad we have you in this video, because I think these words are really important.
Great.
To show what you guys are doing, not only specific project, but all this concept and belief. It's not just a project. I believe it's something bigger than that.
Absolutely. When you look at one of the areas of science that interests me is quantum physics. Quantum physics tells us that every single thing is connected on a fundamental and deep level, meaning that we all are, meaning that the whole of this reality is. And it's through that interconnectedness that these small things suddenly become larger. Like throwing a stone into a pond, those ripples extend and touch the surface water of that whole area. And I think that by doing these small little bits and pieces within the places that we visit and within our lives, that's how we create, a snowball can create an avalanche. And that's what we need to do in terms of our level of consciousness, in terms of our way of thinking. Once you expand somebody's level of consciousness, there's no going back. You can't contract that. And that's the important thing, I think, from the children's point of view, from the young adults' point of view. They might not do particularly well at school. Now, I didn't either. I'm not very good at memorizing things. But there are many different forms of intelligence, and education, mainstream education, doesn't recognize that. But we can take the groups who aren't fitting into that for whatever reason. Some of these people spend the rest of their lives thinking they're stupid when they're anything but. And if you can inform them of different ways of thinking that are perfectly acceptable in terms of, rather than thinking they're stupid forever, now they're inventing things. Now they've been given those tools, they've been able to come up with these things themselves. And that, all of that is a very powerful force of change. And that's exactly what we need. Not empty change. There's a certain politician got into power by saying change, hope and belief. He never explained hope for what, believe in what, change what. Those words are very powerful, but they're empty with nothing behind it. And these things we can all take for ourselves, and we all have that responsibility because we are all capable of so much more. It's not an easy journey stepping into that power, but once you start, there's no going back. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. All right.
Thanks very much.